Today is December 19th, 2014. And I was just explaining how socks were put on my hands so that I couldn't scratch or couldn't scratch at the men who were assaulting me or poke them in the eye or do anything like that. And so the other use that they made of this socks in what they were doing to me in sexual assault is, well, the socks on my hands were always connected to punishment for not accepting being raped. And then sometimes some of these guys, I mean, a couple of them were like Italian. Actually, a couple of them, I'm not quite positive that they were government specific, but they were government in at least in the sense that they worked with government and were doing the same things as some of the people in the government. You know, maybe they were some kind of side mafia, but the government was using them and working with them to harm me. So there were a couple of people that I don't remember them being specifically as government employees, but they worked with all the government employees. And so sometimes they'd put these socks on my hands, and then they'd start punching me, and then they'd say, you know, come on, can't you do anything now? And, you know, so we go ahead and give me your best shot. Hit me with your best shot, they would say. And they'd make fun of me and turn my getting raped and trying to defend myself into some kind of a boxing game. And there were other specific individuals who were involved in that. And anyway, so the sorry, I'm very tired right now. But and that's something that I remember Albert Pardo showing up for, you know, to watch or be part of in some way. And so then another person well, anyway, I can get into more of these different names later, I guess. But sorry to delay on what I was going to say next. But the socks on the hands was always connected to sexual assault, and then other times what they started to do is they would leave a pair of socks instead of instantly putting them on my hands. They would drop a pair of socks on the ground, and they'd have those socks there ready, so that when I saw the socks, I saw a man standing there, and then I saw the socks next to his feet, or saw him there. What I knew, or even if I was sitting in a chair, and then they were standing and wanted me to give them a blowjob while I sat in this chair, they would drop this pair of, like, usually it was like some kind of athletic sock, but it could, I think it could have been any kind of sock, but I think it was athletic socks most of the time. I mean, most of the time what I remember was like white, plain old white socks. And when I saw the socks on the ground, I was basically being forced to immediately, without any words, without any complaint or hesitation, I was supposed to immediately give him a blowjob. And if they started to say later, I explained how later they then turned it into this thing of even extending that programming or enforced rape to include still giving them a blowjob, even if they said, no, I don't want, no, I'm fine, just leave me alone, or whatever. Like they would make a protest against have me do that, as if they didn't want me to do that. And then I was supposed to, so then of course, like, that's when I would stop. You know, as a kid, being told no by an adult meant, you know, backing off, even if it wasn't a really insistent no. It meant to obey them. I was definitely trained by a lot of people in the military to obey them or else. So I would, so then I'd back off, and then they would beat the crap out of me. I mean, punch me in the face, punch me in the stomach, and different things. And they said, no, why did you back off? I'm just playing hard to get. And you don't back off unless I back away. Something like that. It's kind of like, no, coming from one of these government persons didn't mean no unless they turned around and walked away from me. Something like that. Otherwise, if they said no and they were standing there and I was starting to do something, if they said no, I was supposed to keep doing it, or else I would get beat up. And they would use these socks, and after they used the socks to keep me from clawing them and fighting them off like that, then they started using the socks, making it into a game. Like later when I was older, they started trying to transition the use of what the socks were for, and they started saying, no hands. This is a no hands, do this without any hands game. So I was supposed to have my hands down or not touching them while they basically put their penis in my mouth. And or close to it or around it, or had me do something to it. And as I said, like they had this electrocution box with them pretty much at all times, and if I didn't do what they wanted when I saw the socks on the ground, whether I was sitting down or whether I was standing up, if I didn't do what they wanted to when I saw the socks, those socks meant they would put them on my hands and torture me and beat me up. They'd play their little boxing game, which basically wasn't a boxing game. It was a give me a black eye kind of game, or make me throw up because they punched me so hard in the stomach. That kind of game. I got hit on the head with frying pans, like cast iron pans, and then they would electrocute me. And they would electrocute me until I couldn't say anything anymore. And they did this so many times that and for so many years, and with so many different men, that it became impossible for me to do anything but just try to block things out when I saw the socks and do what I knew I had to do. And other times, then they started transitioning condoms as well. So, for example, if they started trying to put on a condom, and then, and if the condom fell to the ground instead of a pair of socks, so for example, instead of a pair of athletic socks there, as a trigger and signal to me that I had to do what they've been forcing me to do, they would sometimes use a condom and let the condom drop to the ground, like they couldn't put it on, or they needed help with it or something. And if the condom dropped to the ground, or was about to, or they sometimes referred to that as a sock. And I don't remember them usually, like, I don't really remember them ever calling it a condom. I mean, they were careful to steer away from words that a kid could repeat and maybe draw attention to their conversation with. It was like, I mean, I heard a lot of other kinds of words for it, but because they were doing this whole sock kind of routine, they sometimes referred to that as a sock, and other times they referred to it as a rubber, you know, just sort of a melange of different nicknames for it. And so anyway, I really needed to incorporate and include the fact of how they had used those socks. So this comment by Putin helped me to remember, just, you know, from one of my thoughts leading to another thought to another, that kind of a thing. How socks were used on my hands, and were used as a trigger to force me to do what they wanted me to do, or else I would get tortured. And then, as I explained earlier, often the torture was not just stopping at torture, they were threatening to murder me. And they used guns to my head, and shot little animals, and put knives to my throat, did acid burns on my skin, cigarette burns. They did a lot of different kinds of things to force me to understand that yes, one of these days we could really kill you and not just torture you. So anyway, there was a period of time then where I was not, where for the most part I was left alone, like from age 13 or 14 or so until the time I was age 17. So there was this time frame of, I'm going to say from age 13, of about 4 years, where I was not getting, for the most part, from what I remember, I was not getting sexually assaulted like that. They weren't practicing this on a regular basis all the time, and they weren't trying to test it out now and then either. So they left me alone for 4 years. Aside from, who knows, maybe possibly, it's possible, I think I do remember maybe when I was older, like maybe just about 13 or so, or 14, it was kind of tested on me again, like, and then I would get an injection. They would inject me with something so that I couldn't remember most of what they did, but they would try a couple of times to see if I still retained the spontaneous reaction that they had instilled in me to do what they wanted me to do. And so then, but then for the most part, there wasn't really anything happening until George Bechtold decided that he was going to do the United States government a favor. And he wanted to be part of, he hated me. He pretended to be a friend, and he pretended that he was interested in me, as a teenage boy might be with a teenage girl. But his family had been abusing me for years. And we'll explain this next part.